Right. Hey everyone, my name's Eamonn, that's Iseult and Dan here. And the project we were doing, the main title of it was a craft farm lab. So originally what we were doing was we wanted to look at the parallels between the craft beer industry and how we could apply like the success of that to farming. The project we came up with at the end was called, we're called the Craft Grow Co now, and we want to grow a hop farm. So to introduce ourselves again, I'm Eamonn, I'm a mechanical engineer, Iseult is also a mechanical engineer, and Dan is a maths student. So for the three of us to come up with an idea to grow something on a farm, it's completely alien to us. Myself and Iseult are from Dublin, so we've never even been on farms. And we assumed Dan's from Louth, we assumed he lived on a farm, but he hasn't been either. But yeah, back to it. The picture beside that, that is a hop plant, and it's not a vine, it's a bine, which is something we learned on the project. And that's what they grow on, and basically we want to start a farm and grow these from like a big superstructure for them to grow on. That right there is the hop. That's what gives beer its really distinctive taste. And those little yellow it's like the pollen inside the hop, the little bit of yellow in there, and that's what they throw into the wort and the beer brew, and that's what gives it its very distinct bitter flavour. So when you're drinking beer, like the very big part of the flavours that you get when you drink it is from the hop plant. So if we were to grow it and to grow a farm, we would call it the Craft Grow Co, and that would be our brand, kind of following the same lines as craft beer. And those little subheadings there, they're like the individual brand for each variety of hops. So there's a very big distinction depending on what type of hop you use and how it was grown. That will affect the taste of your beer. And the craft beer brewers are actually very interested in this. And we thought you could do it from within the community and show them that we also care about the ingredients and the qualities of the beer. So this is the approach that we're going to take. So again, why would we want to grow a farm when we know nothing about farming? And I'll introduce Iseult here. She'll show you how we got there.
So how did we get to this conclusion about branding a hop farm and that sort of stuff? We did a lot of research on this into the parallels between branding a farm and craft beer branding, and what better way than to go to the Irish Beer and Whiskey Festival and talk to some brewers ourselves and get some samples, of course. So one of the marketing strategies that we came across was the whole traditional feel and storytelling aspect of brand. This is an example with Station Works Brewing Company. They had a beer called Finn, which was modelled on the Ulster legend Finn McCool, who was said to be involved in he did it himself, building the Giant's Causeway. And this was reflected in the beer and in the marketing strategy, which was, if you see here, the coasters are shaped like hexagonal shapes, which was a very nice touch. Also, we saw a collaboration between artisan food growers and craft beer people. This guy here, he managed the production of algae, spirulina, which is like a green dye. He collaborated with Independent Brewing Company to create a green beer for St. Patrick's Day. We thought this was a very nice touch, the collaboration between two communities that are really into artisan products. We also were talking to O'Hara's, which are the biggest microbrewery in the country. And one stat that they did tell us about was the fact that microbreweries only represent 1% of the beer industry in Ireland, which was very interesting. They actually got us very interested in the products as well. Here we have malt, we've barley, we've yeast, and we've the hops shown here. Moving back though to the microbreweries, seeing as it's only worth 1% of the industry, we're kind of wondering how it's so small. But if you look at these figures, how they changed, in 2011, there was only 2.6 million litres of beer produced. That's still a lot of beer from a microbrewery. But this grew to 7.1 in 2014. This is a huge growth. The number of microbreweries also grew twofold in the last 2 years. So this is really an industry that needs to be tapped into and be really taken advantage of. So another project that's really taken advantage of the growth of microbreweries in Ireland is the Brown Paper Bag Project at El Mulligan Grocer. They collaborate with different microbreweries all across the world to create different authentic beers and brands. One in particular was when they collaborated with East Kent Goldings. They're in East Kent. They grow their own hops on site and produce. All their produce is grown on site, and they also produce in the same place to create a fresh beer. And that got us thinking about Irish produce and fresh produce and what is grown here for the Irish beer. I'm going to pass you back to Eamonn, who's going to talk about hops.
Yeah, so if you were to make an all-Irish beer, one of the ingredients you definitely need is hops. So we started looking into the idea of hops in Ireland, and that's what we came up with, is that there are no hops in Ireland. Which is very confusing when you consider that we're such a big beer producing country that we don't actually have hops. Yeah, you talk to people and a lot of people say, oh, it's to do with the weather and it's to do with a lot of other things with the soil and things like that they've never been grown. But we looked into it and there have been hops grown, that in the 17th, 18th and 19th century we grew hops in the southeast of Ireland. That declined in the 20th century when people could start bringing in hops and other ingredients on ships. So the big brewers were able to meet the demand that they had with a supply chain of hops. Eventually, in the 1930s, the weather wiped out the last couple hop farms in the southeast, and that kind of ended production for a while. But in the 70s, these guys in Kilkenny, the Moss family, they were advised by a horticulturist to try and grow some hops on their farm, and they had a contract with Guinness then to produce hops for Guinness, and Guinness were buying all their hops from their farm. It worked for about 20 years, and then when it got to the 1990s, Guinness and there was one other brewery in Cork, and that was all we had in Ireland that was producing beer, and they were so big that when they're buying hops, they're buying tons, and they're so much hops that if they save a cent on their kilo, they're saving thousands and thousands, and then depending on how much they send, they could save millions just by the price of hops they get. So they started outsourcing then to other countries and importing them because they were saving millions of euro. And unfortunately, the brewery or the farm closed in the 1990s then because it wasn't profitable enough. Yeah, go ahead.
So we're wondering, how is the growing demand for hops with the growing craft beer market, how is that being matched? So here's just a quick breakdown of hop production globally. So as you can see, obviously the US and Germany being the major players, and China and Czech Republic playing a major role as well. For the craft beer brewers in Ireland, here's a breakdown of where we import our hops from. Obviously the UK and Germany being major players. But even some microbreweries going as far afield as the US or China. But if you look at our production in Ireland, the bar chart at the bottom here, as you can see, Ireland are only producing 2.6 tons per year. But if you compare that to Germany or the US, it's nothing. And who is that 2.6 tons? It's these guys, Coulon from White Gypsy Brewing Company and Wicklow Wolf. These are the only two companies that use Irish hops in their brewing. And that's because they grow their own and just use their own. There's no commercial hops available for other microbreweries. So our project is to create a commercial hop farm that would be able to facilitate the demand that's growing in the Irish craft beer community. So we wanted to not only create the farm, but brand it in a way that would be approachable for the Irish craft beer community. And they'd appreciate the extra time and effort we'd put into this, so they'd appreciate the quality over quantity. So here are just some examples of how we would brand the different varieties of hops. So you have Sass, First Gold, Cascade, and Phoenix. So these would be from similar regions to Ireland as well, so it would be kind of easier for us to grow them in our climate. But also, we'd be branding these to the microbrewers themselves. So we'd be branding these in a similar fashion to how they would brand their product. So we feel it'll be kind of on the same wavelength as the microbrewers. We'd also give the microbrewers a USP. We give them the unique selling point of being able to use our logo on their bottles to ensure to the end users of their beer, the drinkers, that they would be drinking a 100% Irish hop beer. So this would more than likely as well be a 100% Irish beer. So this would kind of encourage awareness of Irish hops and the lack thereof at the moment. This is also kind of taking prominence at the moment with the fact that Guinness have released the jewellery line where hops is the icon. Hops is the main part of their designs. So we kind of wanted to capitalise on this now when it is at the forefront of the Irish craft beer community. So the goal today is to present this company to take on board professionals or expertise in the area of agriculture. As unfortunately, being engineers and mathematicians, we don't really have those expertise. So we would like to take on advisors to bring this project on and possibly onto a realistic business. We're happy to accept any questions now. Thank you.